Blog Talk Radio.
You are listening to Shriekfest Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Shriekfest Radio. This is Denise Gossett, the festival founder and director and your hostess for the evening. Shriekfest is a horror, thriller, sci-fi, fantasy film festival, screenplay competition. We even have a music video category. Shriekfest is celebrating 19 years in Los Angeles this year, October 3rd through the 6th, and 3 years in Orlando on November 2nd. So mark those dates in your calendar, and even if you don't have a project submitted this year or that gets in this year, please come out and check it out. The films are amazing. The people are wonderful. Projects are started and created at this festival. That's, I think, my favorite thing about it is people meet each other and then they collaborate, and that's what it's all about. Shriekfest Radio is currently in its 6th year. This is the 194th show. Pretty amazing. Never thought that would happen, but hey, it's all good. It's wonderful. So let's see, our website, shriekfest.com, our next cutoff date is May 1st, so you have a little bit of time, but I mean, tomorrow's March 1st already. The year is flying by. Make sure you get those projects in. Our next Shriekfest Presents is March 15th, coming up in a couple weeks, Evil Dead 2. We have started doing every other month. We've teamed up with the New Art Theater, and we do more of classic theater, classic horror films. And often we will have some amazing guests and Q&As, and we always have giveaways. It's a lot of fun, so come check that out. It'll be midnight on March 15th. The call-in number tonight, if you have a question for myself or my guest, is 657-383-0171. 657-383-0171, and if you're shy and you'd rather not be on the air, but you have a question for one of us, you can always tweet at Shriekfest or email at shriekfest.com, and I will periodically glance at those and get your questions answered. So, super excited about my guest tonight. She is a writer, producer, actor, and this is the last day of Women in Horror Month. So I'm really excited to have Megan Morrison on the show tonight. She had a finalist short screenplay in 2018 Shriekfest called Hiking Buddies. And let me welcome Megan to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So, we're going to talk about all kinds of things, Megan, because you have a lot of fascinating things going on. First, I want to ask you, how did you get into this industry? What made you want to act and write and produce?
Well, I don't know. I've always been a writer ever since I was a kid. I wrote a bunch of really bad short stories.
I love it.
And that progressed into writing a little bit better short stories, and I eventually went to Carnegie Mellon to get my MFA in playwriting, and I was going to be a playwright and storm New York City with all of my plays, and then I took a TV writing class and loved TV writing so much that I just did a 180 and decided I needed to go to Los Angeles and be a TV wrter because, that's so easy.
Wow. Were your parents like, wait, what? Were your parents like, wait a minute, first you want to go to New York, now you want to go to L.A. What were they thinking?
Well, I think by that time they had seen me, move around quite a bit, and they knew that I always wanted to be a writer, and they could tell that, that this was what I wanted to do, and they just believed me, and they were like, okay, well, you go do it. And that my parents are like absolutely fabulous, and they're very supportive of what I do, and so they were like, well, you got this thing.
That's great. And you haven't fallen on your face.
Well, I have to admit I have fallen on my face quite a bit, but I keep getting back up, and I figure, well, I might suck now, but I will eventually get better and make something that doesn't suck.
You do not
that's my
suck.
philosophy.
You do not suck at all, so stop. Okay, so you're writing, and you were going to do plays, and now you're doing screenplays, and
right, and I was doing screenplays, and I wasn't getting anywhere, so I teamed up with a friend of mine who also wasn't happy with how far he was moving in his career, so we got together and decided to do a short film together called Dead Color, which was kind of in the vein of Tales from the Crypt. Bad people doing bad things, and everybody gets their comeuppance in the end. Right. So that kind of set me on this path of, I really liked the short film genre, and I liked doing these sort of standalone episodic type short films, and doing something like a darker horror kind of genre. So that kind of really got the juices flowing, and I was really pleased with how Dead Color came out, and it played in a bunch of festivals around the country, and awesome. Really kind of made me feel good about yes, I'm putting my work out there, and people are seeing it, and that led me to being open to being a producer and being more hands-on on the technical side, and that also helped me become a better writer, I feel like, because when you understand what your collaborators are doing, and you might have done it yourself, I just feel like it helps you be a better writer, because you understand what your collaborators need from the script in order to see your larger vision be made.
Sure. Now, you also, with your writing, made it to the top 5% finalist in the Warner Brothers TV Writers Fellowship. What?
Yes.
Tell me about
this.
Yes,
that was very exciting. I wrote it was the second or third year I was out in LA. I wrote a spec script. For those who don't know, the festivals or the workshops require that you write a spec script, which is basically a fake episode of an existing TV show. And I wrote a fake episode of the TV show Shameless, which I absolutely love.
Wow.
And it got just a lot of traction. So that year I made it into the top 5% of the Warner Brothers, and then I also made it as a finalist in the ABC Fellowship with that spec. And then I also had an original piece, which was called Backwoods, which is about a Southern lady cop in Mississippi, which is where I'm from, and she's trying to take down these drug lords that are cooking crystal meth in her backwoods. And
whoa, is
so
that a short or a feature?
It's a TV pilot.
Ah.
Yeah, it's a TV pilot, and I've kind of outlined a little bit to make it into a feature. Like some people have said, oh yeah, that would make a good feature, but right now I see it as a TV show. Something along the lines of Justified, or one of those kind of darker and grittier Southern dramas.
Sure. Well, that sounds kind of enticing. I might want to peek at that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Okay, and do you have more than just the pilot written?
No, at the moment I just have the pilot. I do have a little bit of pitch materials and a presentation, and things like that I can show people if they're interested in learning a little bit more about how I kind of see the arc of the series.
Cool. And what was it like? Was it you just submit your stuff, and then what was the process going with these studio competitions?
With the studio competitions, you submit your spec script first, and then they want kind of a statement of purpose about your life and what got you into writing and why you want to be a TV writer and where your passions lie and things like that. And you submit them online. And it used to be that you had to print everything out, but thank God they stopped doing that, and you can just upload it online. And then they come back and they invite a certain percentage of the people, like for Warner Brothers, they tell you you're the top 5%, and then you submit your original pilot, and then from there they pick a certain amount of people to bring in to do a phone interview, which is how far I got at ABC. And then at Warner Brothers, the top 5% of the finalists who didn't make it to the final round, they brought in and had this kind of meeting with them where you got to talk to some of the people who are in who run the workshop, and so you could ask them questions about what they're looking for, and you learned a little bit more about their process, which was which was interesting, because at that time I didn't really know that much about the studio process, so it was good to be able to pick their brains.
Sure. Wow. Okay, so now you have written shorts and features and pilots. Do you love one more than the other?
It really depends on the story. I mean, I do love the short story. I love the short story. I love the short film because I feel like I don't like stories that drag, so I like everything to be kind of packed into the short version where things are just like bam, 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 just happening, and then at the end you're like, whew, whoa, or you just get that kind of snippet of a person's life, or 10 minutes of their life, and those are the 10 minutes that changed their life, and then you don't really need anything else after that, because that's when the major time, when their life is really changing. But
sure.
For me it's more like I think of a project, or I think of a character or a story, and I really love that story, and it might be a 15-minute short film, or it might be a longer story that I really want to elongate and make into a TV show, or it might be just 90-minute feature. I never really set out to write, okay, I'm going to write this short, or I'm going to write this TV pilot. It's more like, this is the idea, and these are the characters, and this is the arc I see for this narrative, and which genre is best going to serve this story that I have. But sometimes it does change, like with Hiking Buddies, although it starts out as a short, I have outlined a narrative to make it into a feature, and also to make it into a short form TV series, so 10 or 12 episodes at 10 or 15 minutes long. And at first I was like, I don't know if this will work, but once I got into the narrative, and once I really started thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, I really like this story. So that kind of opened it up for me more, and I could really dive into it and explore more of the main character, and you get more of her backstory and why she's doing what she's doing, and I really enjoyed being able to show more of that.
Wow. Now, okay, so what made you come up with or how did you come up with the idea for Hiking Buddies?
Well, it's the story of this hardcore hiker who goes hiking with some casual hikers, and they don't respect leave no trace principles, which
right.
like throwing down their trash and everything, and so she basically kills them. And and then you learn a little bit of why personally she's doing that, but that's the gist of it. And I myself am an avid backpacker and hiker, and not that I want to go out killing people, but I do see a lot of trash on the trails, and I get frustrated, seeing people leave their toilet paper and seeing people leave their orange peels, and And I was lamenting to, but I was actually lamenting to a friend of mine about how there are these different types of people who go out hiking, where you have people like me who are just kind of like, I love nature, and are kind of goofy and hokey and wear, these uncool, like, floppy hats. And then there's, like, super chic people out there who are in their trucker hats. And I had overheard some people talking about floppy hats, and they were like, oh, well, I don't really like wearing floppy hats because I don't think they're that cool, and I like my trucker hat. And I was kind of like, man, what do you have against floppy hats? Like, they're practical, and they keep the sun off your shoulders. And I was lamenting to my friend about this, and he was like, oh, you should write a short film about a girl who, goes hiking with some girls, and they make fun of her hat, and she kills them. And I was like, I don't know, whatever. But it planted the seed, and I just, like, started thinking about it. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, they could also be throwing their trash on the ground, and that could piss her off. And then, she has all this gear in her bag, and she could kill them with it. And it just kind of, ran from there. And
that is so funny.
Yeah. So that's, I guess it's just taking my own frustration and, ramping it up 190 degrees and throwing it into something creative. And I did feel better after I wrote it. I was like, I feel better about my frustration.
Yeah. So anyone out there that's hiking, if you meet Megan on the trail, pick up your trash.
Well, I would say anybody out there who's listening and you go hiking, just, pack out your trash. Just bring it out with you, no matter what it is. Just bring it out with you.
It's just common sense. Let's not ruin the beauty of nature, right?
Yes, exactly. Leave it like you find it.
Yes. Now, okay, you have done some major hiking.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
Yes. So when I moved out to Los Angeles, I'd never really done that much hiking. I loved camping and going outdoors, but I had never really had an opportunity to do a lot of hiking. So I came out to Los Angeles, and I'm like, I'm going to be a hiker. And then I went on a bunch of really long hikes, and I was like, man, this is hard. And I don't know if I'm cut out for this. And, I had to learn about, like, shoes and gear and water and food and all this stuff that I had never really thought, like, oh, yeah, like, you have to have calories and water intake and all this. And I just met some of the most wonderful people, and everybody was so welcoming and funny and just really easy to be around. And it really helped me kind of settle into my life in California. When I first came out here to LA, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like such a big city, and I felt kind of disorientated. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm cut out for LA. But once I started hiking and I was welcomed into the hiking community, it really kind of grounded me, and I felt like, okay, I can do this. Because anytime that I get kind of like overwhelmed with LA life, I'm like, I'm just going to go to the mountains, and then I feel better.
Well, yeah, you kind of get away from it all.
Really great.
Now, are you hiking with people you've met, or were you hiking alone and then just meet people on the trail?
Well, before, when I first started, I was hiking with friends, but a lot of times I would go hiking by myself, and I was like, oh, I just like hiking alone. But once I actually took a class through the Sierra Club called a wilderness training course, and they basically teach you all the basics of how you need to, like I mentioned, like eat and drink and your 10 essentials, et cetera, and met tons of people through that program that I still hike with now. And those are the people that, I went backpacking with them in the Grand Canyon last year. And my one of the girls that I met through the WTC, she and I hiked the John Muir Trail this past summer, which was the longest trail that I've done. And that goes from Mount Whitney up to Yosemite in the Sierra. And that's like about 250 miles.
Whoa! No.
Yeah, that's the big hiking trail that I did.
Yeah, how long did that take?
It took 3 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah. It took,
and you did this with somebody?
Yes. Yeah. By that time, I was like, I don't really want to. I switched. At first I was like, I just want to hike by myself. But then once I started hiking with other people, I was like, this is really great. Like, I really like hiking with others. And I didn't really want to do the John Muir Trail by myself, but I couldn't find anyone. When I was first planning it, I couldn't find anyone who had that much time off of work. So I was like, well, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to plan to do it by myself. And it just so happened that a friend of mine who's a teacher was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that with you. And so it just worked out that she was able to have the time. And when you're planning a trip with someone that you're going to see, you're going to be with basically 24 hours a day for 3 weeks, you're a little bit like, okay, we're going to do this. But it worked out really well. Like, we got along so well, and we're still friends now and still go hiking together. So it was a really, really fantastic experience.
I see people do that, and I always think, it's so cool. I don't know if I could do it. Like the wilderness, and I just don't know, out there and so far away from help if you need it. Like, how do you get past that? And maybe I've seen too many horror films.
Well, if anyone has seen too many horror films, it would be you, I think.
Yes. So my mind goes
for
there.
Me, yes, to all the bad things that happen, absolutely. Well, for me, not all my fears, but most of my fears are satiated by the fact that I feel prepared. I feel like I have the experience, and I've taken the classes, and I know what to do. I've taken a wilderness first aid training class, and I have my maps, and I feel like I have some tools to use in case something does happen. So for me and the type of person that I am, as long as I feel prepared and as long as I kind of have options in case something does go awry, I can be confident in that, okay, if something happens, I will be able to handle it. But we also had they have these great little GPS devices now called InReaches, and it's basically like a safety net for you. So you just turn it on and hit a button, and it automatically sends a signal out to search and rescue, and they can find you even if you don't have service. If you're out like in the middle of nowhere.
That's nice.
So that's kind of having that, and then just feeling confident that I knew enough to get me through was really what kind of made me feel comfortable doing that. I mean, there are things that I don't feel comfortable doing, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like, a friend of mine and I went up to Mount Baldy last weekend, and there's like so much snow up there, and we got a little bit up the trail, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. This is too dangerous. I have to turn around.
Oh, wow.
And go back, So there are times where you're like, no, I don't, I'm just going to call it, like, but that's part of being prepared and being educated, and, the mountain will be there tomorrow or be there later, so you don't have to push yourself into an area where is like super dangerous.
Right. Well, doing something physical like that, does it make you feel like you can do anything?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I bet.
It does. It really. I think I tell people that I really feel like hiking is a great training ground for being a writer, because when you're hiking, you just get to that point where you're like so tired, and you're just like, you're in a bad mood, and your legs hurt, and you still got like 2.5 miles to go, and you've got your backpack, and you just want to throw it all in, and you want to sit in the trail, and you just want to cry, and you're just like, but you have to keep going, because like you can't sit down in the trail. You have to keep going. And so many times in my writing career, I feel like that, where I'm like, oh my God, this is too hard. Like, I just can't do this. I have writer's block, and it's just not flowing. But I just, you just have to push through it. So when you do push through it, and you get to the top of the mountain or you get to your next camping ground and you're like, oh, yeah, I did it. It's that same feeling of like pushing through your writer's block and getting to the end of a screenplay and being like, I did it. It's finished. So yeah, I do feel like hiking and pushing myself physically has really given me so much confidence in the other areas of my life where I think like, oh, why am I upset about this? Like, why am I nervous about this? I was on the trail for 3 weeks and, didn't shower for 10 days and, like, whatever, I can do anything.
Right. Now,
don't worry about this little thing.
Do you ever combine the two? Do you write while you're out and about?
I take a little journal with me, and if I'm not too tired at the end of the day, I'll jot down some notes. And I have, since I wrote Hiking Buddies, I have been getting more sort of environmentally situated ideas, and so now when I go hiking, I get more bursts of inspiration about like, oh, I could do a story about this, or I could do a story about that, or what would a story about a person being lost in the woods look like? And so I do find that the more that I hike, the more ideas I get about the environment, and it's very comforting to me to get to do that, because sometimes I feel like, oh, I don't need to go hiking, I need to be home writing. But because hiking serves I tell myself, well, hiking serves your writing, so it's okay if you go, on a 4 or 5 hour hike.
Inspired by nature, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel very inspired by nature, and it does influence my writing and gives me that space to be out of the house and out of my head and just focus on doing something physical, so that when I do come back to the writing, I feel refreshed and I feel ready to go.
Sure. Well, all the writers out there listening, maybe you're not going to go hike 250 miles, but sometimes it might be a nice change of pace to get outdoors and clear your head. And so, Megan, where can people find you? Are you on Facebook, Twitter? I know you have a website, meganamorrison.com.
Absolutely, yes. You can find me at my website, meganamorrison.com. My contact information is there. You can see my projects and kind of keep up with the things that are going on with my career. I'm also on Facebook. There are tons of Megan Morrisons on Facebook, so I'm the one in the blue wig. But
what about on Twitter? Are you on Twitter?
I'm not on Twitter. I am
Megan.
on Instagram. I know, but
you have homework, Megan.
It's another thing.
I know. Trust me, it sucks. We all hate it, but that is your homework. You have got to get on Twitter, because the cool thing about Twitter, and we're going to run out of time here soon, but the cool thing about Twitter is you can follow other people that you admire. You can tweet to them, and you'd be amazed how often people respond. It's not like Facebook where they have to give you permission to be their friend. You can follow anyone. They don't have to follow you back. But it's cool because, you can say to this director, oh, my gosh, I just loved your latest project, and often they respond. It's super cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's your homework.
Okay, all right. I will take my homework and I will do it.
Thank you so much for coming on. This has been lovely getting to know you better.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful experience for me as well.
And keep me posted on your projects, and if you need help promoting anything, just let me know. I would love to help, and I look forward to your next things.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much, Denise.
Thank you. You have a great night.
You too. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
You are listening
to that was wonderful.
Radio.
I'm so glad she came on the show. Check her out. Her website was meganamorrison.com, especially if you're another writer. I think it's great that writers talk to each other and, maybe read each other's scripts, give notes here and there. I think it's all really, really wonderful. Get those projects in, guys. Keep pursuing those goals. Write them down, break them into baby steps, and do some of these steps every day. If you want to write, direct, or act, you better be doing something every day to get you closer. All right, guys, have a great one, and I'll see you back here next time. Good night.
You are listening to Shriekfest.